What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
All right, I think we are all set. Yep, we are good. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to episode number 504 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's KB and Matt coming at you from Underground Studios. Next week and a half, we're talking Eagles Super Bowl. We're right around the corner from pitchers and catchers. And the Sixers just continue to do their thing and stick to the status quo of celebrating a team going to a championship and being hungover for the preceding game. That's just what happens. We're going to talk all about it, but before we get started, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at UndergroundPHI, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI. If you're watching live, Twitch.tv/UndergroundSportsPHI. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Every single episode up on your favorite podcast app of choice. Leave a 5-star rating and review as well once you subscribe. It does go a long way for the show continuing to grow. We're in a golden age right now. Let's get Philly sports on those charts with your favorite independent Philadelphia sports coverage. So just go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review, and share it with your people. It does help the show grow to the next level. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. That's where you get full video episodes of every single podcast on our network. You get clips, shorts, original content, live streams, you name it. It's going on our YouTube channel. We just had a nice little content meeting the other night, too, that we got a new series coming directly to our YouTube channel in the near future with the one and only Pat Pitts, so you're not going to want to miss out on that. We are currently at 372 subscribers as of this recording, so make sure you go subscribe, smash that like button, ring the bell icon, comment down below your thoughts on everything Matt and I discuss on tonight's episode. And big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen: Main Auto LLC, Security 21, Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, and the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland. What's going on, Matt?
Living the dream.
We are living the dream. Eagles in the Super Bowl, and our amazing merch partners, PHI Apparel Company, collaborated with us. We released our own big game merchandise capsule celebrating, the Eagles going to Super Bowl 57. You guys can go to phiapparel.co. It's linked in all of our bios on social media, and it's under the football tab on their website as well. So when you go to shop now, go to football, and you'll be able to find it. Kind of took inspiration from, those vintage 90s, early 2000s Super Bowl shirts, and I couldn't be happier with how this one turned out. Go snag that bad boy. We're trying to make this the #1 best-selling piece of merch on the website, phiapparel.co, and make sure when you guys check out, use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off. When you get your merch, you can get fire hoodies like I have on right now from all of our podcast merch as well on their website. But gear up. If you order now, you'll get your shirt or hoodie in time for the Super Bowl. So go phiapparel.co, use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your order. Matt, the Eagles are in the Super Bowl. The foundation of what this podcast was built on was the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, and 5 years later, we're back. It still doesn't feel real. 49ers fans are on cope alert, but it feels good that the Eagles are back where they belong.
Yeah, it was the most relaxed, I think, NFC Championship game since the last NFC Championship game for the Eagles. I think it gives you like that last fourth quarter to the time to really just enjoy the party and start to really soak in the feeling that you're going to the Super Bowl. It did feel a little more dialed in and relaxed this time for so many reasons. I think 2017 the Eagles hadn't been in the Super Bowl in a while at that point, and it's just the way it all happened, and it was a night game, and I think that led to a lot of the extra stuff, the extra
Yeah.
celebration afterwards. I think now the fact that you have a Super Bowl and the team is so good this year, so dominant, and I think people were a little more well behaved after the fact. It was not a great game. It was certainly not an instant classic. I'm not even sure it's one that you'll like. The Vikings-Eagles game is fun to revisit because there's like big momentum plays and all that. There's really not that much in the 49ers game to like revisit. I guess like if you want to go back to a few of the like forced fumbles or something, that's kind of it. Even though the way the Eagles scored their touchdowns were not like amazing. It's just their usual kind of efficient selves and how they performed this year. So it is not one for the record books. It's not one that you're gonna like reflect on and think, wow, just an instant classic. I'm going to be talking about this one for years. It's a little bit forgettable, but that's fine because it gives you a Super Bowl berth. And yeah, I mean the Eagles now too, like in their 2 playoff games, have absolutely demolished their opponents. Outscoring them 38-7, 31-7. I mean that's impressive margins to be going through.
And I think the big takeaway too from this Eagles postseason run right now, and like everybody gets caught up in great offensive performances, and that's when everybody gets crowned the best in the game and all this, and we love and drool over unbelievable offensive performances. But when defensive stalwart performances happen, it's like it's not that great. It's not that impressive. Like everybody talking about how Jalen Hurts hasn't shown anything this postseason. Well, guess what? He hasn't had to. You're playing against a Giants team that was clearly inferior and beat a phony opponent in their wild card matchup against the Vikings, who everyone knew going into the playoffs the Vikings were an extremely lucky. You want to define luck this season? It was the Minnesota Vikings. They were 11-0 in one-score games, and they got caught with their pants down against the Giants and lost their first one-score game of the season when it mattered most. And then the Giants come here. The Eagles clearly show that they're a more dominant and more efficient team than the Giants were. The Giants, were lucky to be in the postseason this year. And then the 49ers come in, and it was only a matter of time before the Brock Purdy, Cinderella story turned back into a pumpkin. And unfortunately, it happened due to an injury, but like the Eagles defense proved that they were the more dominant unit on the field in that game. And everyone just wants to point to the quarterback because it is an offensive-driven league. But I think the Eagles defense needs to be given a hell of a lot of credit for the way that they performed this postseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's the highest sack totals, this century. And, you're talking about putting them up with some of the most iconic defenses of all time. When you look at a lot of the defensive numbers they put up this year, and that was the difference in this game, too. Purdy gets hurt, and from there, like, the game is such an uphill battle for the 49ers. And, it starts to kind of wane as a contest, especially as soon as Johnson goes down, too, with a concussion. Like, we're all aware of that. But it is the definitive play of the game, which was a forced fumble and sack by this Eagles defensive line that changes the outcome of this game. And, you don't go out there, I think, with the intention of hurting someone, but you do go out there with the intention of making big plays and changing the game. And that's what it did. And, for as much as people want to talk about that ruining the game or whatever, like, in my opinion, Kyle Shanahan ruins the game, right? When he has a backup tight end trying to block like Hassan Reddick. Like, I'm sorry. I know that he's a very smart coach, but I think like every alarm bell would be ringing if that's your matchup on the edge. I don't know. Maybe instead of yelling at the Eagles for whatever, like we assign some blame to Kyle Shanahan for making a bad decision on defensive line. Like this is a defensive line that is as good as any that we've seen, again, this century. So they affected the game like they have all year, and they continue to do that throughout the game. Again, even when Johnson is in, we know is not amazing. They're still disrupting him a lot. And, when you look at the prospects for the Super Bowl, that's a huge advantage that the Eagles have. I would say there's only one clear position that the Chiefs are much better in, and they're going to be better than every team in the NFL at the quarterback position. But 2 weeks for Mahomes to heal up his high ankle sprain, that's not enough if it is indeed a high ankle sprain. And that is an injury that can get re-injured through the course of a game. He's still amazing. But this is going to be the best defensive line that he's had to contend with. And, you put him under some pressure and you hope that you kind of just have to hope that you can force him into one or two bad decisions, right? You're not going to get what you've got through these first 2 playoff games in terms of pressure to quarterbacks and what you've been able to do. But yeah, I think the Eagles have shown like all year and all these playoffs when it's mattered too. Like, you can take whatever you want from the 49ers game. You can take whatever you want from the Giants game too. But the Giants went in and were a very efficient, good offense. Everyone was raving about Daniel Jones after the Vikings game. And the Vikings obviously don't have a great defense, but that was the talk of the town, was how good they looked and that they could go into Philly and, make it. And it was no
Feeling
contest.
like 2007.
It was no contest, almost immediately. So, you can talk revisionism, whatever you want, like about different paths this game could have gone. I still feel like defensively the Eagles showed exactly what they were through the course of this season, which is incredibly dominant and suffocating. And yes, it gets easier when it's Christian McCaffrey, running it up the middle, right? Like, and you are much more aware of what the other team's going to do, but you still have to go out there and make those plays, and that's what they did.
100%. And I think, you bring up two more weeks for Patrick Mahomes to kind of rest. It's also good for the Eagles. It's 2 more weeks for Lane Johnson to heal up on his re-torn groin that he re-tore against the Giants. Jalen Hurts gets 2 more weeks to kind of rest his shoulder up a bit. And, Avonte Maddox, you clearly saw his presence out there against the 49ers and how valuable he is to this secondary. He gets more rest for his toe injury. And I think, across the board, you look at kind of the matchups the Eagles are going to have when the Chiefs are on offense. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is, public enemy number 1 for this Eagles defense of trying to shut him down. You want to stop Patrick Mahomes from doing as much as possible. But then you look at the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has. On the outside with the wide receivers, I love the matchup for the Eagles secondary. With Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Avonte Maddox, CJ Gardner-Johnson, up against the Chiefs receivers, whoever they decide is healthy enough to go out there, whether it is, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney. Like, I love that matchup for the Eagles. The tight end, obviously Travis Kelce is going to get his. You just have to kind of, limit him. You're not going to shut him down. And then the Eagles on their run defense. Everyone wants to talk about the Eagles' run defense struggling this year. Well, you remove some of the games that Jordan Davis was out for, and the one game that they didn't have, Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph up to speed yet. The Eagles' run defense really caught fire once again, once everybody was healthy, and they've been fantastic in the postseason. They shut down Saquon Barkley. They didn't let Christian McCaffrey go, buck wild on them. He got his, but did it result in much? Not really.
The one drive where he really took over when Johnson first came into the game. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, it was moot from there.
And I mean, you're gonna deal with Isaiah Pacheco, and we'll talk about that storyline as well. But for whatever reason, Andy Reid this season, as soon as Isaiah Pacheco kind of worked his way into being a full-time starter in the offense, Andy Reid doesn't like to use him in the red zone for whatever reason, and it goes to Jerick McKinnon a ton. And I think if you're able to kind of just neutralize the Chiefs' run game between the 20s and just kind of put your focus on, okay, we need to stop Patrick Mahomes. He's not at 100%, and we got to do whatever we can to stop their pass game. I think the Eagles have as solid of a shot as any team to go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs.
Yeah, again, Eagles offense can be just as efficient and good as the Chiefs offense, and they can get it done in a lot of different ways. It's going to be a great matchup. I think these are two, any of the 4 teams I think remaining in the playoffs that we had this past weekend, it would have been a great Super Bowl matchup. And I did feel like we did get the best Final Four available. And I think, the AFC was a lot more of a toss-up for me, like who's kind of, but, I think Chiefs and Eagles are probably the 2 best teams, the 2 number 1 seeds, and they've probably been the 2 best teams over the course of this season. And yeah, the Chiefs have had to reinvent themselves a few times this year, and especially, when you consider losing Tyreek Hill, and I think people really expected them to maybe at least take a small step backwards, but they've been just as good. Mahomes has been just as efficient, likely an MVP winner. You have that, obviously, I think kind of it hasn't come to the surface yet. I think we've been too busy on the early stuff, the easy stuff like Kelsey brothers and all that, and Andy Reid coming back to Philly, or like playing Philly again. But, the MVP discussion, could very well be a big point that people bring up here. So I do think the Eagles match up with them well, but it's still Patrick Mahomes, and I think people have flashbacks of last year when the Chiefs came to Philly and it was a rout, but it's a completely different team. And that was much earlier in the season too, when the Eagles had not really, I think most people would recognize that second half season Eagles was just a different team all around. And yeah, I mean, this year they've been one of the best running teams ever in football, and they've been a great defensive line. And, like you mentioned, that secondary can give anyone problems. When you're up against Mahomes, can't trust it enough. Like, he's the great reducer in all that is good about your team. But, I think they have a good shot at it. I mean, it's not like the Chiefs have been impervious.
Right.
Like it's not like they haven't. That Bengals game was very close. And it wasn't easy for them. The Jaguars game even was not easy for them. And that's not to say that they still can't win the Super Bowl, but I think we sometimes have in our mind that the Chiefs are like completely just unguardable juggernaut, and like they play close games and they win and they're very good, but I think the idea that they're like I don't know, just like an unstoppable force. People have this tendency to treat them like the 2015 Warriors or something, like the 2017 or 18 Warriors, where it's like, what do you even do? What's the point? Yeah, like you can make games close with them, and I think the Eagles are built to do that too.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at just kind of the way that the Chiefs play football too. Like, they win, but they don't always cover. And when you look
rarely cover, actually.
Yeah. When you look at it from that aspect of point scoring and your defense and everything, Chiefs rarely cover in any game that they play in. And I think that's just a testament to they have a very solid defensive line. Like Chris Jones, Frank Clark are unbelievable on the edge, but the rest of that defense is not all that.
In the playoffs, they have this tendency to. I mean, you saw it in the Bengals game. Like they really gave them a lot of fits, and they don't have the quality that the Eagles' defensive line has, but Chris Jones is obviously going to be a problem. Yeah. And everyone's been picking on their cornerbacks. I thought they made huge plays in that game, and I mean, when you get to this part of the year too, it doesn't matter if you're a rookie anymore. You've played 19 games of football, 20 games.
You're not
of
really
football.
a rookie anymore.
You're not. Like you are a much more like learned veteran at this point. You've been through months of preparation, and now like it is a much different thing than playing them the first week of September. Now when you're playing them at the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think they're just two teams that are hard to separate, and I mean, it was not the best championship weekend either. Like the Chiefs Bengals game was fun and engaging. I even stayed up to watch it because it was that close and that kind of back and forth. But even that didn't feel. We were kind of hoping for like a what we got with the Bills Chiefs last year in the division round, and that just never really materialized, which is not surprising because the Chiefs Bengals games have been good, but they've not been like electric games, where it's like, oh my god, just offense everywhere. Like it's been big like clutch drives and just like talent making the big plays when they have to, which is exciting in kind of a different way. So that was a fun watch. Like we said, the Eagles 49ers was not one we'll revisit, which is fine.
And I mean, you just look at this Eagles team too, and I saw some people talking about this on Twitter, and just the age we're in with our favorite sports teams. You look at the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, you look at the Phillies with Bryce Harper, the Sixers with Joel Embiid, and now kind of, Tyrese Maxey as well as kind of the next young guy that's coming up and endearing himself to the fans. And then even with the Union, like Bedoya has been, the mouthpiece for that team for years. It's so different, I think, from when we were growing up, where like, and obviously social media has a part in this, but like we have guys who genuinely like want to win for the city.
Yeah, I mean, think of it too. Like the Eagles are a very accomplished team and organization. 2017 is the first time they won the Super Bowl, technically, right? But all of our lives, they've always been a competitive team. They went to a ton of NFC championship games for us as kids and teenagers, and they've always been a team that is in the playoffs, in conversations for the playoffs, winning division titles. Like if you just look, it is a blessed bunch to be an Eagles fan. Truly, like they've had a lot of success that teams would genuinely like murder for. Like they would actually probably kill someone to have what the Eagles have had, even with only the one Super Bowl. Like to be back in. Not many teams are able to make it back to the Super Bowl within 5 years. Like that really is an accomplishment as well, and speaks a lot to their ability to pivot. We talked a little bit about this in the preview last week, just like where this team was in like 2020 and where they are now. Like it's just a huge shift. It's cultural shift, it's roster shift, like everything. And you look at the future that they have too, like it's very bright. You know, you have Jalen Hurts still in a rookie contract next year. Like you still have ways that you can improve this team. You still have a top pick in the draft this year. Like there's a lot to be, I think, like hopeful about here for the Eagles. So yeah, I mean, all around, you know, like obviously Union and Phillies were in their finals or champions or World Series, you know, this year, and it didn't end up great. But I do think there's something to the aspect of like, you know, when other teams are doing it, it feels like just like fans of other teams, it sort of bleeds like into that belief, you know, and I think that can be a really contagious and good thing. And yeah, I mean, it's been a year that hasn't like rewarded us yet. Maybe this is, you know, where we start to get it, at least the last year, not like 2023. But,
Right.
You know, we've had a lot of great moments, you know, like with the Phillies run, with the Union run, and even now the Sixers have like turned a little bit of a corner with us, and you're starting to get like excited about them again. Yeah, you know, I think, like I said, the Eagles have been a very, very good team for my entire life, and I've never really had like a bad stretch. They've had bad years, but there's never been like 3 or 4 years where it's like it's not even worth watching.
Yeah, it's like one every like 8 years.
Yeah,
it, like, pops
which is
up.
like
crazy.
Again, I can't stress that enough. Like teams would literally, I'm not kidding. I'd like if you gave an owner of a team the option to like press a button and murder someone in the world for that type of success, they're pressing that button 700 times.
Yeah.
Like they are.
Like 2014 when they went 10-6 and missed the playoffs and then missed it the last year of Chip Kelly. Like back-to-back years of missing the playoffs for the Eagles is so rare. Like it just doesn't happen.
And that was like a disaster.
Yeah.
That was like a spiritual disaster. And people were like questioning the soul of this team and what, like, how do you even reconcile this? And that's like, that's like the Lions of the last, like, you know, that's the Jets. Like that is just what other teams have had to live with all the time, you know, with no even slight joy in between. So it's cool to be back in the Super Bowl. I think it was even cooler because the game kind of allowed you to, it took a little bit of the edge off. And again, it felt like at halftime even, it was like, yeah, this is all us, you know, like we're going back, and that was exciting, you know, and you got to settle in for the AFC game and sort of like, all right, like, you know, like who do we want, you know, who do we want? There's no great answer to that question, but you know, it's great. I mean, it's great that you just don't get it. These are the good times, like enjoy them, because there's no guarantee either. You know, it was the same when we talked about with the Union, with the Phillies, like, sure, it feels great now, and like all of that I just said about the Eagles' future, like it looks bright, but like you never know. Like you never know when you're going to be back. If I said to you right now the Eagles won't be back in a Super Bowl for another 14 years, people would be like, no, like they'll be back next year or the year. Like, but you never know. Like you just don't know. You don't know when your window closes. You don't know when that is the last time, or that was your best chance at it. Yeah, and that's just the reality. So you got to take advantage of it while it's here.
100%. And you know, the after game celebration was fantastic. Everybody was bringing that energy, just like our friends over at W Energy, our new partners. W is clean, natural, caffeinated energy to keep you focused and ready to rock and roll throughout your day. They are the top of the line. W is using a formula that includes Neurofactor, which is patented to help with brain cognitiveness. It helps you stay focused. And W also contains vitamins, amino acids, and nootropics, like I said, including that patented Neurofactor. But what it doesn't have, it's 0 calories, no sugar, no maltodextrin, no fillers, and no artificial colors. They are dropping new stuff. They're always on social media asking for, you know, input from followers and everything like that. So you guys can go to w.gg, check out everything that they've got. They just dropped the new Black Widow shaker, which is black with the red W logo on it. But go to w.gg and use code UNDERGROUND when you check out. You get 10% off any and all orders. Get your tubs. They're going fast. The Fruit Punch, the Push and Punch is sold out, but they're working on restocking that pretty soon. But they got the Big Energy tiers as they go to war on Big Energy, which is your blue raspberry flavor. The Dragonade is fantastic. Dub Sludge, which is Granny Smith apple and secret sauce. They've got Passion Joy tea, which is iced tea flavored. They've got great stuff. It's fantastic. Go to w.gg, use code underground for 10% off your order. The celebration photos and everything, Matt, after the game were just fantastic. Scrolling through Twitter, seeing all just the pure, contained chaos that was Broad Street was phenomenal. Saw a photo that one of our listeners posted. We put it on our Instagram. Shout out to at Phil's08Champs on Twitter and Instagram. Somebody setting off fireworks, and I saw somebody say, "Where the hell did you motherfuckers get fireworks in January?" More collapsing SEPTA stations.
As soon as I saw that picture, before I saw the video, when I saw it live, Jesus. When I saw it live, I was like, "This is those are not meant to handle weight. They're meant to handle the weight of snow. They're not,
if that."
Those are not meant for a dozen people to be standing on. So, I hope everyone is okay.
It was that. I saw a photo. It was the Eagles going to the Super Bowl in 4 frames, and it was girl climbing up on one of those things, posing on one, and then on the ground with a neck brace, smiling, and then in the hospital with the neck brace. Just so many characters out in the streets. It's always fun watching the videos out there and everything. Super Bowl's in Arizona. I forget if the Chiefs played in Arizona this year or not, but I don't know how much of that plays a factor. The Eagles did play in Arizona earlier this year. I don't know how much of a factor that plays for the Eagles, that they know that turf out there and how kind of shitty it is too.
They did play at the Cardinals as well.
So, I mean, that's an advantage for both teams, kind of knowing that field and how it can kind of be pretty messed up. The Eagles are technically the home team, so they'll be wearing their green jerseys. They get to practice at the Cardinals' home facility as well, so that's an added bonus there for the Eagles. They get kind of the home amenities of the Arizona Cardinals, but I don't know. The field in Arizona is something that is a little concerning.
Yeah, it's not the best playing surface, but I think in a one-off game, you just kind of cross the fingers and hope no one plants too hard. But I think it's it's nice too, because I think both teams, obviously the core of this team, of the Eagles team, is not totally from the last Super Bowl, but you do have enough people that I think were around that as so many people talk about the week leading up and how hectic it is and what a schedule change it is, you're away from your family, or at least parts of your family, depending on your situation, and it's just a different routine. And then the Super Bowl itself is Tom Brady always said this too, that it's really easy to have these emotional letdowns within it too, especially at halftime, because halftime is longer. So it's really easy to really kind of lose yourself in that halftime mode and get your emotions peaking and lulling at the wrong time. So having people that have experienced that and are aware and how to navigate that situation is big. It's we don't think about that kind of stuff very much, but every little bit counts. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see just kind of how this next week unfolds. We were talking about the injuries, that's gonna be the big thing. Everyone's gonna be on Mahomes' ankle. That's gonna be the huge thing. Travis Kelce was questionable going into the game against the Bengals because of back spasms. Obviously I have to think that could potentially be all their wide receivers essentially are dealing with injuries. And then the Eagles, like you said, Lane gets 2 weeks to duct tape the groin to whatever ends, and Jalen too with his shoulder, still he still is not 100% with that, but it gives him another 2 weeks now that he's able to really, and again, when it's the final game of the season, and you don't have to worry about next week, maybe, and this is it. This is for your legacy too, and for your next contract as well for Jalen, right? It's going to be very hard to not, get a big contract deal, not just when you take your team to the Super Bowl, but also win them a Super Bowl. So there's going to be a lot of incentive, I think, for guys to go out there and just really, not that they need it. It's a Super Bowl. What do you?
It didn't even cross my mind until I saw the tweet too. It is pretty crazy that this is the very first Super Bowl where both starting quarterbacks are black.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy too, because the Eagles have had two very successful black quarterbacks. Really, if you
Really
count Vic
four.
too, yeah, but like in like the modern, like
Yeah.
you have Cunningham as well, obviously too, but like go to the Super Bowl, and be like the guys, like and be the faces of the league and be very, very good quarterbacks. Like that is not, just hasn't been common, and Mahomes himself as well. Like it's just not. It is, but like it's obviously been a position that historically has been a white dude, So it is cool that you're getting just kind of a different feel, different perspective now too of like guys coming through, and I think too like people have just recognized that like I think too like the way we talk about athletes a lot can be like without realizing it, you can stereotype very easily about the white quarterbacks and how they always do their homework or whatever, and the black quarterback was always like categorized as being like mobile, like he uses his legs, not a great thrower, and it's like I think we've moved past that in some part. I think there's still like issues there, right? But I think in general we've accepted the fact that like first of all you can improve as a quarterback. Like who you are as like a junior in college is not who you have to be at, when you're 26. But I think we've understood that like actually like being able to like move and be like quick and be able to like be a threat from rushing is actually a really good thing, and it's actually like the most valuable thing you can be now. It's not just about being a statue in the pocket anymore. Like you have to have these multiple skills, and not that like transcends like race or whatever, but like I think in the past, like quarterbacks that would have been relegated to Lamar, like they tried turning into a wide receiver. It's like, that's stupid, like, but it's like in years past, like you probably would have, like, and we wouldn't have been able to do that. So I think it's cool. It's in some ways a sign of progress too, I think. And I mean, it is kind of surprising though when you think about it, that it's the first time it's happened.
Yeah, because I think it was Eagles Nation tweeted that the Eagles are like leaps and bounds ahead of every team in the NFL when you include those four, with Randall, McNabb, Vic, and now Jalen Hurts for starts in franchise history by a black quarterback. And Super Bowl 57 will be start number 370 by a black quarterback for the Eagles. So that's pretty awesome. And it's wild that it's taken this long for that to be a thing, but it's a historic Super Bowl from that aspect. Historic for Jalen Hurts in a number of ways. He's the youngest quarterback in Eagles franchise history to lead the team to the Super Bowl. And he's the first quarterback, obviously, to have that all-women's management team. And his agent is the first black female agent to represent a starting quarterback in the Super Bowl. So that's another, milestone there. And it's crazy when you look at who is on this Eagles roster, too, and some of the, like, big, like, names that when you look at the NFL in our lifetime, it's like, wow, this is the first time they're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like Darius Slay, and then him teaming back up with Ndamukong Suh when they were in Detroit. Obviously, Suh won with Tampa Bay, but AJ Brown, big names who have just never been to the Super Bowl and now get that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean AJ Brown, first year with the team. You're right. You're right at it. It's cool like to see those guys get that experience as well. And I mean, I wish it was this weekend.
And we had the big trade this morning of draft picks and Sean Payton to Denver. After the game on Sunday, Jonathan Gannon like flat out said that he's not going anywhere. And like you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, but now that we're seeing like the head coach landscape kind of fill itself out, I think the Cardinals are the only team left that are still looking to hire their coach, and they seem to be heavily linked to Brian Flores to be their next coach. It does kind of feel like Jonathan Gannon's staying.
Yeah, it's hard to see. D'Amico Ryans takes the Texans job pretty much the day after the championship loss. So, yeah, there's not many out there, and Peyton takes the Broncos. Like there's just
Carolina hired Frank Reich.
Right, like it's all kind of dry. Even coordinator positions too are like, he's not making a sideways move. So yeah, it seems like you're gonna be able to run it back with this like coaching staff for the most part, unless something unforeseen happens. And I mean too, we got like massive retirement today with Tom Brady
2.0.
Yeah, 2.0. This one feels real. I think because he looked us right in the eyes and said it.
Someone said, imagine you're walking your dog and you just look over in the dunes and Tom Brady's announcing his retirement.
I mean, honestly, that's like it's a crazy moment. So we'll see. We'll see if he actually stays retired. But I mean, that obviously adds a different layer too, right? Because now the Buccaneers were a team that has to be interested at least in the quarterback market this offseason. They have some coaching positions to fill still too, I think, right? I don't know
they fired Byron Leftwich.
Right. I don't know that they filled that spot, and Frank Reich probably feels a little better about taking that Panther job too now, right? Like it's that division is not exactly at its optimal level, so that's obviously going to send some shockwaves too. Because I think Tom Brady was being linked to like some other places, like the 49ers, even the Jets, like the Raiders. Like there's lots of conversation about where he might go. So again, fool me once, but it did feel like he's done.
Yeah,
which is amazing. I mean, in some ways, I was actually kind of happy he won in Tampa, and like, because like at a certain point you reach a threshold. Like this is just my own personal feeling, where it's like, even though I don't really like care for Tom Brady, like it's cool that he won another one, and now it's like you just reach that tipping point. It's like, actually, I kind of just want to see this guy win like 3 more, because I can say like, yeah, he's the best. Like it's the best I ever saw. Like he just won wherever he went. Like there's something cool about getting to like witness that in your life. It's the same way I felt about like LeBron when he went to the Lakers, even who I don't care for, but it's like, yeah, it's really cool. Like I don't know. I think it's cool that you see these guys that have been around for your entire lives, essentially. Like I really haven't known the NFL without Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And just be like uber successful, and like I don't know. We listen to like our like parents and even like our grandparents talk about like the greats from like their generation, whatever. It's like it's gonna be kind of hard to beat Tom Brady. Like it's gonna be.
And it is pretty cool that Nick Foles and the Eagles are the last team to beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so we'll always have that.
Tom retires. There was allegedly a video of Aaron Rodgers throwing to Devontae Adams on social media today.
Well, Aaron Rodgers probably super pissed too, because he can't retire, because there's no way that he's sharing a limelight in their Hall of Fame induction with Tom Brady.
Well, now does Aaron Rodgers go to Vegas?
I don't know where he goes.
Because wherever he goes, because apparently the Packers said they're only trading him to an AFC team. They're not trading him to the NFC. Sense.
But they have to decide this offseason because of the way his contract is. The dead money goes significantly up.
$60 million.
So, like, wait, if he's not traded, he's, like, there for the next, it's like another year, right, outside of next. So, yeah. We'll get some clarity.
Obviously we don't want to look too far ahead, but, like, for the Eagles and the future with Jalen Hurts as the franchise quarterback of this team for what we hope is the next decade, who else in the NFC has a quarterback? Like, obviously Dak is in Dallas, but
might be a different tune after this draft.
Right.
But
you look around the NFC, is kind of like that older guard of quarterbacks as opposed to the AFC where all the young guns are. Like, you have Jared Goff in Detroit, who's kind of, had a career resurgence, but,
is not winning you a Super Bowl.
Right. And, Stafford's in L.A. Who knows if he is the same again after his surgery and everything. Rodgers is closing in on 40. Brady's now retired. Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins.
Well, you're not gonna believe in the Jameis Winston resurgence, or
who knows where he ends up?
Sam Darnold, Desmond Ritter. Not a big Desmond Ritter guy.
I'll give the Bears credit with Justin Fields.
Sure, but like they won 3 games this year, like,
right.
And he could not stay healthy.
Right.
I love
he's
what
kind
he
of
can
the
do.
Biggest question mark.
I love what he is like. He's going to get a lot of Jalen Hurts comparisons this offseason. I think some of that's a little unfair on both of them.
Right.
I love what like the explosiveness that like Justin Fields gives you, but like,
is that sustainable?
Is it sustainable? And also like, still was not comfortable throwing the ball. But people said the same things about Jalen Hurts, so he can certainly improve. But yeah, I mean there isn't.
49ers are the biggest question mark ever.
Right. The AFC is definitely like stacked with quarterbacks.
Like you can make the argument right now, Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFC.
It would be hard to argue otherwise. I really don't know who else.
Because Seattle's got Geno.
It's really like him and Dak, I think, right, at the top, and then that's
Dak
kind of
is going to be 30 next year.
Right. And Dak is not. He's not had like even the success that Jalen has already, which isn't totally fair, but I mean they get rid of Kellen Moore too, by the way. He's off to LA. It's going to be interesting with some of the AFC quarterbacks like request a trade or like leave so they can go when Lamar is in the NFC in the next 2 years somewhere and in a much happier space. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, because I mean, in Washington, you know.
Oh, they're planning for Sam Howell, so it's the next man up.
There's like no quarterbacks. It's going to be interesting over the next X amount of years too, with
Again,
where quarterbacks end up from the draft.
If you were like just like thinking about the Eagles' future, like yeah,
it's
like,
looking nice.
I mean, honestly, like in the NFC, like the team's way ahead of ourselves. But you know, like if you look at just even next year, like it's really the 49ers, Eagles, and Cowboys again. You know, at the top, at least regular season wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. Again, it's so early. It's pre-draft. It's pre-free agency. But like, just thinking about it now, like it's like we said, the quarterback situation, which can change. You know, like we could an unforeseen trade. But like even the guys that are in the market, like Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers have said is not going to return next year. He is not someone that I don't feel is like making a team. You know, like I'm just trying to think of like him on like a team that is like kind of just needs a quarterback, and like I don't know that he's making that difference. Like
Tampa,
I don't. Are they even are they as good as they are this year? Like yeah, which is like a team that makes the playoffs, but ultimately like you know because in part because of their division. Like on Carolina, is he like Carolina's a great defense, but like just not sure that that's a team that's winning like 12 games and is winning the NFC. I don't see it. I don't know.
It would be funny for Jimmy Garoppolo to go where Brady just left.
Would be hilarious, at least for like the bit. But yeah, you know, Derek Carr is like not really moving the needle in a real big way. So
another guy that's 30
right.
plus, you know, it's going to be interesting with the landscape of the quarterbacks. And, you know, as Eagles fans, you got to feel good about the position we're in right now. We're obviously going to be covering as much of the Super Bowl and everything antics-wise that goes on over the next week and a half. So make sure you guys are following us there. But pivoting to the hardwood, it's brought to you by our friends over at Kenwood Beer. It's the official beer of Underground Sports Philadelphia. And since Kenwood has been in the Wells Fargo Center, the Sixers are, I believe, a whopping 12-3, 11-3, something like that, since Kenwood Beer has entered the Wells Fargo Center. You can get Big Kenny's whenever you go to the Wells Fargo Center now. And you can also use that all-new and improved Kenny tracker to see who's got Kenwood Beer on tap in the Philadelphia area. You got to be 21 or older to do so. And, of course, please drink responsibly. Matt, you haven't been on since Saturday's showdown with the Joker.
What a nice weekend.
Monday's hangover game against the Magic. But what a game for the Sixers, you know, against the Nuggets. Joel Embiid just does a goddamn double up on Jokic in the stat department. ESPN absolutely disgusting display of posting and captioning. I don't know if you saw any of that.
Oh, there's 71 points.
The YouTube caption of they combined for 71 points, and the only two videos they posted from the game were George Niang and Shake Milton yelling at each other, and then Harden doing his little sneaky off the bench defensive technical foul.
We are truly the conspiracy theorists of the NBA. It's great. Like we are just convinced everyone hates us, and I love it. I wouldn't have it any other shape. There's also Monday was the Markelle Fultz return.
Yeah.
Played terribly, so still won, of course, but Saturday's game was great. It was the exact type of performance that we've seen from Embiid over the years. It's never quite come in a moment exactly like this, but it is the type of game and performance that people will remember, whether that's fair or not. You know, when it comes time to vote for things and stuff like that. Like, a lot was made of him not starting the All-Star game. Ultimately, I think it's ridiculous that he isn't. I also think it's ridiculous. Like, there's a lot of hand-wringing over that, and it's like, he's still going to be an all-star. Does it, like, I don't know. Does it really matter if he's starting the game right? Like, I get it. It's dumb that he isn't, but I'm also not sure it's, like, the end of the world. But clearly, it pissed him off, which is fair. He's allowed to feel slighted by it. Doesn't matter what I think.
And I did see, too, if you took away the fan vote, Embiid starting.
Right. I think, ultimately, too, like, this has come down to more the frustration with the MVP stuff over the last few years, and that he has felt very deserving, I'm sure, and I think that he's been deserving of winning the MVP, and he feels overlooked. I think in general he is. I think it's very hard to say that Embiid is not overlooked nationally, and this is not like Sixers victim complex thing.
Right.
I really do feel that Embiid is not given the same credit that other players are. He's leading the league in scoring. He's literally like one of the most efficient scorers in NBA history. Like he's no limits to what he can do offensively, and he's in his body. Like it's just amazing. Like it's amazing what he can do. It's amazing how gifted he is, and the defensive impact he can still have. Like I don't know. It's not easy to win in this like modern era with like a big man. Especially like it's just not easy, you know, and we'll see like how his career shapes up ultimately. But like he is comfortably the best Sixer I've seen in my lifetime. One of the best players I've seen in my lifetime. Like he's amazing, and he showed that all in that game. And you know it showed too. Like again, I'm not getting reeled back in with the Sixers, but it showed like he is capable of being the best player in a series, which is what you need to win a series, which is what you need to win a finals too. Like you need to have a guy that can absolutely take over a game, and he's never totally done that in the playoffs. He's never been a bad performer in the playoffs, but he's had like good moments. He's never had like a takeover moment like that. And this is a regular season, so it's like whatever. Yeah. But you know, the stakes were there in the game, and they were down, and leads a comeback, and you know, puts the nail in the coffin at the end. Like he just had it all that game, and I think it's a huge performance, and it's one that we might reflect on for a while, especially if he goes on to win an MVP this year. I think this will be the game, you know, barring some other like great performance that he has, but I think this will really be the game that people look back on.
And I mean, if you want to go full-blown conspiracy, the tired take is this was the Joel Embiid game. The wired take is that this was the PJ Tucker game.
Yeah, I mean, PJ Tucker, like, it's funny because like this was kind of the performance that you want out of PJ Tucker. Like this is, you know, like or dislike his contract, all that stuff. Like you went out and got him because you know this year, especially like he can like give you performances like this where like, yeah, maybe in years gone by, like Embiid isn't able to do this because he has to do so much more work defensively on someone like Jokic, right? And you haven't had someone that can disrupt and play the way, you know, Tucker does. And, you know, it's why he's been an asset to a lot of playoff teams the last few seasons. You know, so there's a lot of importance there, like in the way that he kind of shapes and alters the game in a little bit. The Sixers have not had that type of capability. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see too, obviously, what they do for the trade deadline now. You know, they're in a good spot in the conference. Technically, the first seed is still within reach. It's going to be tough, like, you know, to beat out the Celtics and the Bucks for that top race. But you at least have that knowledge that, listen, you know, Daryl Morey has not been afraid in his career to like take big swings and make a big move to try and like really push the chips in when he feels like he has the team. Maybe he feels that way about this team, and like maybe this is the time to do it. But I am going to be interested to see what they do in the trade deadline. The game is great. You know, I love it. I love watching it.
Yeah, and Jason Dumas, who's very tapped in with the Sixers, tweeted today. A source says the Sixers have no plans to make any major roster changes at the trade deadline, but they will be in the market for a backup point guard, shooter, and a backup center that can play with or without Montrezl Harrell. There is a market for Matisse Thybulle. Multiple playoff teams that need defensive help have inquired. The Sixers are open to moving him.
Yeah.
So they're not going to make any massive moves, but they're in the market for about 3 different styles of player.
Which has like been the kind of, those like the 3 players that the Sixers have been looking for the last like 5 years. So not surprising. Yeah, like a backup big man would be nice. I think if you can make an upgrade there, that could be really, really huge. Like this is where you miss Andre Drummond. Like I wish that he was back. But yeah, I mean, even someone like Thybulle, who, you know, his future seems very unclear with the Sixers. So like, just kind of feel like maybe you cash in now, even if it's not anything great. You know, if you can find someone that's a little more useful for you this year and going forward, like that might be really helpful to you. But yeah, you know, they obviously don't have a ton of capital to work with to begin with, and you know they get into the repeater tax next year, which is gonna, you know, make the payments, you know, so maybe there's a little. There's a little incentive to do that. We'll see. You know, like it's hard to really tell. This team has not been easy to predict over the last few years. Even with Morey, who's been a little bit more stable, like some of the moves that we've made have not been ones that, I don't know, people expected or thought were going to happen. So,
yeah, I mean, it'll be a cold day in hell when the Sixers are not looking for a backup point guard.
Right.
That's been like the case since the process era. Right now, Sixers leading the Magic 37-26 at the Wells Fargo Center as the Magic are down for 2. But I mean, they are I know it sounds dumb, but like in theory, you know, when we were talking about the other teams kind of seeing, you know, the successes of the Phillies and then the Union and now the Eagles, like, do you think there's just a sprinkle of motivation from, you know, the Embiids, the Hardens, the Maxis, and like seeing the success around this city and being like, yo, we want next?
Perhaps. I think, you know, like when you see those big games and things like that, like I think it can make you be like, damn, like I want to have those moments, you know. I want to I'm sure they were like a bunch of them were at the Eagles game, and I'm sure like it must feel cool to like in some way be part of that, but also be like, damn, yeah.
What a photo that was.
Right, like a real who's who. So yeah, I think it can influence them. Ultimately, though, I think they all want it no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that they need like if you're at that level, like that is your motivation. Embiid has been clearly motivated like his entire career. Like has been like again, if you talk about just a case study and like improving as a player in like every way imaginable, like it's a guy that's just never quit, like never not improved himself, never come back and like not added something to. So like I think that energy and motivation has like always been with him. Again, just it's don't want to turn it too much into an Embiid gush fest, but like honestly, like what more do you ask of this guy and like what he's given and his talent? Like feels like the player that maybe we just, you know, people in general haven't appreciated enough, despite all the plaudits that he does get. Like I think he needs even more. So, but yeah, I think the motivation is always there with him. But I do think there is something to the fact that like when you've had some championship runs now this past year and you have like that big momentum and that feeling of belief within like the city and within the fans too, like, you know, we've all been in those situations too where it's like it's just kind of a different energy when like everything is kind of going well and you go to like a game or whatever. Like, you know, people are in just like better moods in general. Like there's less to be mad about. You know, I can remember like after the Eagles Super Bowl even, like there was like a real boon and like just how I remember all the Philly teams like won for like a month straight.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like, you know, like and maybe those things are just random, but you know, like I do think there's something to the effect of like, you know, when the fans are really happy and like other things are going well, I think it just sort of bleeds and all blends together.
Yeah, and then the Phillies signed Jake Arrieta, and it all went downhill.
Right.
But the Phillies did make a signing during the Eagles game, which was strange timing.
Real G's move in silence like lasagna.
It's like, of course, John Heyman's tweeting about a signing right now. But Josh Harrison's back. He was signed during the 2020 season, but then the Phillies cut him because they didn't want to have to pay the tax. And now they're bringing him back as a kind of utility bench role player and going over the second tax threshold by signing him. Sam Coonrod designated for assignment. I like the move. You know, friend of the program, Alex Carr, who is writing for the Phillies SI Fan Nation, did a interview with him 3 years ago when the Phillies initially signed him for the good fight, and he said Josh Harrison is like the team player, the locker room type of guy that you want on a team, and it felt like, you know, the Phillies like just let him get away, and now that he's back, I think it's a good move, you know, especially after the Phillies make that big trade with the Tigers and send two, you know, good vibes locker room guys to Detroit. You bring in a good vibes, you know, locker room guy who's going to help you, you know, navigate through the first half of the year without Bryce Harper. I like the move. It's $2 million, and like we've always said, there's rarely any such a thing as a bad 1-year deal.
Yeah, you know, you have an escape hatch, and it's fine. I actually really like where the Phillies roster is at right now. Feel comfortable. We're on like 2 weeks till we get reported here, so feels good. Feels good to, you know, once the Eagles are done next weekend, it's going to be really time to start at least thinking and hoping about them, and you know, but yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Phillies depth chart right now, like pitching rotation just looks gorgeous. Taijuan Walker in the mix there, and then you know, you're adding to this infield Josh Harrison along with, you know, Edmundo Sosa, Scott Kingery, you know, Bryson Stott now at second base. It's going to give Bryson Stott some time off, you know, for certain games if you need it. But yeah, I really like where the Phillies roster's at, and I think we're like 15 days away from pitchers and catchers, and then I think first spring training report date is February 20th, so yeah, we're right around the corner. from the Phils, and we're a month away, Matt, from Survivor.
Yeah, which is sneaking up on us too.
Sneaking up, can't wait. It's going to be one hell of a Survivor season. We got a former NFL player on the cast, and as it inches closer, we'll be talking Survivor once again. But Eagles are in the Super Bowl. This is kind of that one, lull period for the NFL where there's not much going on because teams aren't in Arizona yet. But next week media day happens, and we're going to be tapped in. Our anniversary show next Wednesday, planning some big stuff for that. We are going to officially announce the Hall of Fame on our show next week. The Underground Sports Philadelphia Hall of Fame ballot will go live next week. And we also have a giveaway going on our Twitter right now. It's our pinned tweet that we will announce the winner on Wednesday as well. Giving away a Dewani Jalen Hurts print. It's super dope, like all of her art is. Go check it out. It's super simple. It's our pinned tweet at UndergroundPHI on Twitter. Go enter that bad boy. Share it with your people. And let's keep the good vibes rolling as the Eagles head into Super Bowl 57. Yes or no to Travis and Jason Kelce's mom doing the coin flip?
Yes.
I feel like that would be unbelievable. First mom to have her sons facing off in the Super Bowl.
You tired of the Kelsey brothers stuff?
I also loved, I think it was Kyle Brandt tweeted, tired. Andy Reid used to be the coach of the Eagles. Wired. It was Nick Sirianni as like a assistant coach for the Chiefs.
The only good Kelsey brothers content is when people are posting the pictures of them at Cincinnati. Now just absolutely
0 eyeballs.
Just gruff they look.
It's incredible. Their new episode of the podcast is the #1 podcast on Apple Podcasts right now. But go make us #2 because it's probably going to be impossible for us to be #1 with the Kelsey brothers content. But make sure you guys are following us on the socials at UndergroundPHI, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Castorina. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. It really does help the show keep growing and lets us chase down the Kelsey brothers in new heights. Shout out to them. But go leave a 5-star review on Apple. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. That's where you get full video episodes, live streams, clips, original content, shorts, everything video-wise goes right on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. Big thank you to our sponsors who make this show happen: Main Auto LLC, Security 21 Security Systems, Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated, the Dental Wellness Center of Vineland, and our amazing merch partners over at PHI Apparel Company. Guys, we've got the best big game shirt out there. Go to phiapparel.co in the football tab. Check out that Eagles Chiefs retro vintage look tee. We got it in hoodies as well. We want to make this thing the #1 selling item on the website. phiapparel.co. Use code UNDERGROUND. You get 10% off. That's how they know that you're coming from us. So go to phiapparel.co. Get geared up for the big game. And if you order now, you'll have your shirt or your hoodie in time for February 12th. So go get your merch. Get your podcast merch as well. Tag us, tweet at us when you get it. And we want to see where you're rocking your merch from heading in to the big game. But this has been episode number 504 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. For Matt, I'm KB. Next week, anniversary show, 5 years. It's crazy. We got some big stuff planned. But until then, we'll catch you on the next one. And we are signing off. Peace.